You didn't disappear because you hate people. You disappeared because something inside you got tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of forgiving things that were never acknowledged. Tired of being the one who understands everyone, while no one really understands you. And then something strange happened. The silence that followed didn't feel lonely. It felt peaceful. And that's the part nobody talks about. Because when someone slowly walks away from everyone, people assume the worst. They think you're bitter. They think you're antisocial. They think something is wrong with you. But sometimes walking away isn't collapse. Sometimes it's the first moment you can finally breathe. Maybe you remember when it started. Not with a dramatic fight. Not with some huge betrayal. It started quietly. A message you didn't reply to right away. A call you ignored because you felt exhausted. An invitation you told yourself you'd answer later, but never did. At first, you felt guilty. Your mind whispered the same questions over and over. Am I being selfish? Am I pushing people away? What's wrong with me? Because for most of your life, you were the opposite of this. You were the reliable one, the one who stayed up late listening to someone else's problems, the one who showed up when everyone else disappeared, the one who kept the peace during family arguments. You were the emotional shock absorber in people's lives. Every complaint, every crisis, every breakdown, it somehow found its way to you, and you carried it. Not because you were forced to, but because you cared. But here's the quiet truth many people eventually discover. Caring can become exhausting when it only flows in one direction, when you are always the one understanding, always the one forgiving, always the one adjusting. Something inside you slowly begins to drain. Not suddenly, slowly, like a battery that never gets charged. And then, one day, your mind does something unexpected. It stops trying. You stop explaining why something hurt you. You stop chasing conversations that go nowhere. You stop fixing problems that were never yours to begin with. And from the outside, it looks like you're withdrawing. But on the inside, something different is happening. You're recovering. Here's something psychologists rarely say directly. Sometimes the healthiest thing a sensitive mind can do is step away from constant emotional noise. People who feel deeply often grow up believing their role is to hold everything together, to listen, to comfort, to mediate, to absorb. But the human mind isn't designed to carry everyone's emotional weight forever. Eventually, it protects itself, not with anger, but with distance. Pause for a moment and think about this. How many conversations in your life actually leave you feeling energized? Not obligated, not drained, but genuinely understood. For many people, the answer is surprisingly small, and once you notice that, something shifts inside you. You start paying attention to how people make you feel. Some people leave you lighter, others leave you exhausted. Some people listen, others only wait for their turn to speak. Some relationships feel like oxygen, others feel like slow suffocation. And the moment you truly recognize this difference, you can't unsee it. That's when walking away starts to feel less like loss and more like relief. There's a strange peace that appears when the constant emotional noise disappears. Your phone stops buzzing. The endless small dramas fade. The pressure to respond, explain, mediate, and maintain everyone's comfort quietly dissolves. And for the first time in a long time, your thoughts become quiet. Not empty, just quiet. And that quiet can feel almost unfamiliar, because many people have spent years living inside other people's expectations. At first, you might wonder if you're becoming cold. You might question yourself. Why don't I miss everyone the way I thought I would? But the answer is often simpler than people realize. You don't miss the chaos. You miss connection. And those are not the same thing. Real connection feels calm. It doesn't require constant emotional labor. It doesn't make you feel like you're always one misunderstanding away from conflict. It feels safe. It feels balanced. But when someone has spent years surrounded by draining dynamics, silence can feel more peaceful than company. Not because they hate people, but because their nervous system is finally resting. Think about the last time you were completely alone. No notifications, no expectations, just you. Did it feel uncomfortable, or did it feel like relief? For many people who quietly walk away, that relief is the most confusing part, because society tells us something different. It tells us that happiness means being surrounded by people, always social, always connected, always reachable. But the truth is more complicated. Some people aren't escaping loneliness, they're escaping emotional overload. And once that overload disappears, something surprising happens. You begin to rediscover yourself. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions become easier to understand. You start noticing things about yourself that were buried under years of other people's noise. What you actually enjoy, what actually matters to you, what kind of energy you want around you. And here is the quiet twist most people eventually realize. Walking away from everyone was never really about everyone. It was about boundaries you didn't know how to create before. Instead of saying no, you disappeared. Instead of arguing, you stepped back. Instead of forcing people to understand you, you simply stopped explaining. Not because you gave up on people, but because you stopped giving up on yourself. And strangely, this is where life often becomes more honest, because the people who truly care about you don't disappear when you create distance. They don't punish your silence. They don't make you feel guilty for protecting your peace. They simply remain. And slowly, something else begins to happen. Your world becomes smaller, but clearer. Fewer people, less noise, more truth. You stop trying to maintain relationships that only exist out of obligation. You stop pretending certain dynamics don't hurt. You stop performing the version of yourself that everyone expects. And in that process, you begin to feel something that used to seem impossible. Authentic calm. So if you've been quietly pulling away from everyone lately, it might not mean you're broken. It might mean you're tired. Tired of noise. Tired of imbalance. Tired of being emotionally available to people who were never available to you. And sometimes, the most honest thing a person can do for their mental health is step back long enough to hear their own thoughts again. Because the strange peace of walking away from everyone is not about isolation. It's about finally discovering which relationships bring you life and which ones were slowly taking it away.